when you think tolerance, when you're going to, remember, we're talking about the speaker. So when you speak with tolerance, I want you to remember the golden rule. Treat one another as you would like to be treated yourself. Now, tolerance is being patient, understanding, and accepting of the differences of others. I'm going to give you a really silly example, okay? Very, very silly. If I were to ask you, when you floss, do you floss before you brush your teeth, or do you floss after you brush your teeth? Now, you're probably going back and forth. I floss before, I floss after. Here's the thing. I floss before. It doesn't make sense to me why you would floss after, because you would floss before so that you can get the gunk out of your tooth and then you'd brush your teeth, right? Well, Renee thinks that's bizarre. Why would you do that? You would first brush your teeth and then get the leftovers out. Tolerance. Who says my way is the right way? Who says his way is the wrong way? I've already asked dentist friends and they all say different things. There's no right way. We have to be tolerant of each other. Now, I want to caution by saying I'm not talking about principles. Okay? So I'm not talking about being tolerant of a husband who's coming home drunk and punching you in the face. I'm not talking about being tolerant at that. Bad behavior. I'm talking about being tolerant of each other's preferences, each other's differences, culture differences. We grew up in different family dynamics. Renee and I are Brazilian. We came to America as immigrants. Now we are American citizens. But here's the thing. I am very different from Renee, even though we have similarities in our stories. You know why? Because I'm from Fortaleza, Renee is from São Paulo, and even though we are Brazilians, we speak differently, we eat different things. There are some jokes from where I'm from that I say, and he's like, whoa, that went over my head. I have no idea what you're saying. There are some Brazilian Portuguese words that Renee will say, and I say, I have never heard that word before, Amanda. And then Renee will look at me and says, well, because you're using that word as a slang, I have never heard the word you just said. So we have to be patient, understanding, and tolerant of each other's differences when it comes to preference. There's a story in the Bible here. It's found in Luke 9. So we're still in Luke, but now we're going to go backwards here in Luke 9. And Jesus here is talking to the disciples. I'm going to read this definition first before we read the story of Luke. It says this: tolerance means accepting that every situation can have two different yet valid perspectives. And more, there's always something worth learning from your partner's viewpoint, right? So don't die on every molehill. Be willing to change your mind. Be flexible. And Jesus shows us just that in Luke 9. Pick it up in verse 49. Where is it? Here we go. So John comes up to Jesus, and look at what John says. Now Jesus answered and said, Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow with us. So he's like, listen, Jesus, you're going to be so proud of us. There was some guy, we have no idea who he was. We don't have his number. We don't have his contact. Never seen this guy. Can you believe he was using your name? He was using Jesus, your name, to cast out demons? And we said, hey, sir, stop that immediately, because he's not in our clique. He's not in our group. Jesus looks at him and says, wait, what? Jesus, look at verse 50. But Jesus said to him, do not forbid him. He who is not against us is on our side. What Jesus was saying to him is like, hey, listen, just because he's not in our clique, just because he has different preferences, just because he has different ways to do things, does not mean he's against us. If he's not against us, he's for us. Don't forbid him to do anything. Be accepting, be tolerant, be accepting. The first thing I want you to keep in mind here when you speak with tolerance is that you are on the same team with your spouse. Here's John forbidding some guy from expelling demons, even though he was doing it in the name of Jesus, just because they maybe had different preferences or different ways to go about it. And Jesus says, listen, John, if they're not against us, they're on our same team. Usually, I have husbands and wife conflicting and attacking each other when it comes to something like disciplining their child because the husband thinks it should be done this way and the wife thinks it should be done this way. I can guarantee that you both love your children, that you both want what's best for your children. And maybe you do things a little different. I think things a little differently when it comes to Reverend Reed than Renee does, but we have to be tolerant of each other. You know why? Because his mother and father raised him a little different than my mother and my father. But one thing is certain, we agree on principle, but we have to be flexible when it comes to preferences. And so, tip number one, when you speak with tolerance, remind yourself, I am on the same team with this person. Ultimately, we want the same thing in our relationship, an abundant marriage. We ultimately want the same thing for our children, for them to have happiness and health and to love Jesus. You want the same thing. You are on the same team. Act like it.